Well, the African Diaspora Forum is an umbrella body of the largest groups of migrant traders in South Africa. We're joined by the forum chair, Dr. Vusi Sibanda. Thank you for being with us, Doctor.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Was today's discussions useful for you?
Well, I think maybe the most important thing that we can take away from that is it's an engagement, it's a beginning. I think like what the minister said, that this is the beginning of dialogues and engagements that will take place, going forward. And if we are to take the minister's word for it, then I think, and if she's going to keep to that particular, commitment, I think that would then help.
It sounded like the minister, though, was focusing on a collective approach, African leaders all involved in this, rather than South Africa saying this is our problem. Is that fair enough or a cop-out for you?
I think it's the juxtaposition for me that is a bit of a concern, is in particular if we're dealing with the attacks that we have seen in South Africa, to then say, let's juxtapose it with the overall problems that we have in Africa as a whole, and to bring it at this particular moment in time. Because what we would have loved maybe to see happening is basically to say, let's isolate this particular problem that we have here, and then say, while this issue is satisfactorily being dealt with, then we say, but there are causative issues that we must then look at, that now include the whole of Africa. Because we cannot really say, for example, let's have African leaders coming to deal with the attacks that are taking place in South Africa, because this is, the domain of the South African government. It's the one that's got the locus standi to deal with issues in this country.
Is it South Africans' xenophobia, or is it criminality? I mean, we've had a bit of confusion because our own president apologized to Nigeria, but a lot of the ministers are saying, no, this isn't xenophobia, it's criminality. So how do you even begin to deal with what's going on?
I think this is exactly where the concern is. The president himself has never said that the xenophobia has actually run away from it. And when we have a meeting again, we see every now and again people, continue to say this is criminality, but people don't appreciate the fact that as long as an attack is focused or is directed to a foreign nationality, for the mere fact that that person is not, a national of a country, that is what xenophobia described. So the fact that it culminates into a criminal, exercise that, once you attack somebody, you kill them, that is a crime, does not preclude it from being xenophobia. I think we need to appreciate and acknowledge that if we are to deal with it successfully.
Well, I'm interested in your view. How many South Africans do you think are xenophobic? Are these just a few South Africans and then it becomes a criminal wave? Or is xenophobia widespread among South African communities?
I mean, honestly, from my point of view, I don't think that, a lot of South Africans maybe are xenophobic. I think that every person in any country has got, a perspective, a perception about another person. It includes, races, tribes, Zulus, Xhosas against each other, and then nationalities as well. But now, I think the problem is when we have got what is what we term as xenophobic, is when, we see this attack now, these, perceptions being translated into these actions, that we then refer to as crime. But
you're saying only a few instigators, in fact?
Yes, there are a few instigators, yes. And, in some of the cases, I think you'll actually realize that, for example, like we had these 400 people or so or more that were arrested. Some of the people that were arrested were merely people that were standing by, and the real criminals that were breaking into the shops were not arrested. So you get people that will say, look, I don't have a television, but now the television is looking at me. And do I sit down and what? And then, that chance, opportunism comes in.
Because I'm really trying to gauge the level of fear. So you're saying most foreign nationals feel they can live side by side with South Africans at the moment. They don't live in fear.
They live in fear. At this particular moment, I'd be lying if I say they don't live, because we've seen a lot of people, that have been taken through their governments, but we're also seeing a lot of people that are traveling on their own, and they're saying, look, I can't live here because I'm so afraid. After they've seen, people being brutally killed. Yeah, people have left already. The brutal killings, I mean, people's eyes being gouged out, somebody being killed like a chicken. I think that's the most scary thing, because it takes away the humanity in a person. And when we see that, it's real frightening to a lot of migrants.
So your response to another statement from the minister: African leaders need to be frank with one another. She said, Africa has outsourced its problems to South Africa. We can't absorb all the African problems, no matter how pan-Africanist we are.
I think this is where the problem again for me is, because this is the juxtaposition that I'm talking about, that, we are now importing another problem to deal with a particular problem. But ideally,
instead of talking about
this particular problem now and saying, how do we solve it? If we acknowledge that there is xenophobia, there is an attack on migrants particularly, then we say, say, okay, why is there an attack? Is it simply because politicians are the ones that are instigating it? Is it because of the socio-economic problems that South Africa is facing? Is it because of unemployment? Is it because of service delivery? But we're not dealing with all those issues, to the depth. We are only taking right from the surface and then saying, but these problems are because Africa as a general has got problems. It has outsourced them to South Africa. So we're not being genuine.
Well, how would you like South African politicians to speak? Because we do have porous borders. We do have a problem. Some people are here illegally. Some, not all, involved in crime. So how do you want the politicians to deal with that without raising the temperature and sort of being xenophobic themselves?
Well, I think what we are saying basically is that, let us talk about the problem. Let's not, for example, say we have got serious housing, shortages because of migrants, because they've come in and take all their houses when we don't even have that statistics. We have people that have been kicked out of houses, and not any statistics has come in and shown that, okay, we have 20 million or 10,000 migrants that have illegally occupied houses. And then when we talk of crime, there is crime. Migrants commit crime because they are human beings. Human beings commit crime. And we are saying all those migrants, like South Africans that are committing crime, must be arrested. But now, if we then take that and say it's specifically migrants have brought crime into South Africa, migrants have brought drugs into South Africa, we are taking all the blame for all the bad ills, social ills in the community, and putting them on the migrants.
Well, if the minister is saying Africa has outsourced its problems to South Africa, that sounds like we're dealing with a lot, a huge influx. Some people have spoken about the small populations, in fact, of migrants. What do you know about the actual numbers, the figures right now?
Look, we don't have a straight figure per se, but look, the numbers are huge. I mean, we see migrants. I mean, we meet with migrants every day. We've got serious problems, when we're dealing with migrants, even when they were, displaced, even when you look at the issue of children that are not being, able to attend school because of documents. So indeed, we have a problem with migrants. We can't run away from that. A lot of people from Africa are trekking down into South Africa, and that is where we agree with the minister that we need a frank and genuine talk, about why are people coming here, why are other African countries, leaving or letting their people go out, because it's also affecting the development in those countries, because a lot of some of the people that are coming here are technocrats that should be developing the countries. A lot of these people coming here have actually finished either a university degree or so, which that particular country has invested in, but that country is not reaping anything out of it because it's not producing the right jobs.
So then you're saying she's right. This is about socio-economic conditions across Africa.
We are saying that it's the juxtaposition that is just an issue, the bringing it, the timing to say it's supposed to be used to answer this particular problem that we have. It cannot be an answer to this problem. That is a discussion on its own, and a very relevant and much needed discussion that is needed in depth and seriously in order to resolve all the African problems. We need to talk about it because Africa is in shambles. Africa is in serious trouble because people do not have jobs. The African economy in general is so bad when Africa has got so much resources, and the problem lies with the leadership, and nobody's talking about it.
All right, let's hope these talks continue to bring the two sides together. Thank you very much. That was the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, Dr. Vusi Sibanda.